Hello, beautiful soul family. Welcome to another installment of Oracles Gone Wild, where Andrea and I really let our freak flags fly and we use the full capacity of our oracular powers to talk about the chicanery that is existing on Earth right now and the process that we're all moving through to disentangle ourselves from the false matrix and align ourselves with the organic grid that is available to us at all times, now more accessibly than ever before. I am Amy Blair. This is my beautiful co host, Andrea Donnelly, Oracles Extraordinaire, here at your disposal. Hello, Andrea. Welcome to this episode. So
Hi.
excited to
Oh, oh,
be here with you.
same. Oh my God. We always before we start recording, we do, just like a check-in with each other. We talk for a little while and I'm so excited about this. I'm excited about all of it, but it feels like we're in such wild times, and this lens of perception that you hold and I hold is so needed, and it's so beautiful. Mm. It's amazing to think, like, I think about this a lot. I know a lot of people feel like we're in the midst of a dumpster fire. I'm not saying we're not in one way, but I also know that I have been very aware of how fucked up this place has been since I have memories going back to babyhood. And I know it feels so hard right now, but there's this other way where, like, man, I've always held so much hope. I am profoundly optimistic. I know you are too. And being able to, like, pierce the veil of deception and being able to say, like, I know things feel so hard right now for so many people, for so many different reasons, but also as someone who's always known, like, their entire incarnation and in every incarnation I've ever had in this realm, I've been doing the same thing of, like, speaking truth, helping people reclaim their power, helping people remember that, like, we're the ones who hold all the magic and all the joy. And even though it feels insane right now, it is so beautiful to be at this point that we're in, because there is so much happening and things are different, and they are also simultaneous. Like, even though it feels so complicated, there's a lot of really intense beauty that is, like, literally unstoppably pouring in and being, like, born back into blossoming so brightly in people's hearts. And we are not just going to find a way through this, but we're going to find a way through this, and it's just going to land us somewhere so fucking cool. So anyway, hi. Can't fucking wait. I feel like we've got some really hot topics here to share with everybody today. Um, and I will also just say, for the, like, just for the people, like, I am, a busy brain, and I like to be able to be doing all the things at one time. Um, you're like, I want to look at this person's Instagram while I'm, like, listening to them talk. You can find me on Instagram at C Witchery. You can find Amy at the Cosmic Oracle. Her website is amybelair.com. My website is weareheretoremember.com. So find us on all the places. We might have time to, like, share a little bit about what we have cooking behind the scenes, but that's how you can, like, find us.
And the links
If
for
you
those
are,
are in the
yeah,
notes. If you're watching on
yeah, yeah,
YouTube, like it's in the whatever,
it's in the
the
show
video
notes.
description. And if you're
Yeah.
listening on the podcast, it's in the show notes. So
Yeah. Yeah, perfect. Okay.
yeah. So
Yeah.
today we're getting into the Tower of Babel. And basically, okay, so basically what we're gonna get into is pure communication and telepathy, which I think is so um it's just so on point because we're in a Mercury retrograde at the moment, and Mercury's retrograde in Pisces. And a lot of bones want to be made about Mercury retrograde and all the inconveniences and things like that. And I'm sure that there are always like downsides to every transit. But for me, what I like, my understanding of this particular Mercury retrograde is it's such a beautiful opportunity for us to hone our psychic gifts and most specifically our telepathic abilities when it comes to communication, because Mercury in Pisces is a very silent placement in the first place. Like if you have a natal Mercury in Pisces, you might feel inclined to not talk. You might feel like your knowing cannot be, and your thought processes cannot be encapsulated in the limiting confine of words. Um, but like as we're all going through this Mercury and Pisces, it's sort of like an invitation to connect with each other through the richness of the silence and to like hear, sense, feel, know, understand what is there beyond language and to like tune back into our ability to communicate because we're one consciousness, we're one organism, and we really do have those abilities. And I'm going to toss the ball over to you, Andrea, to start with sort of like the Tower of Babel. And we both had this understanding of the true meaning of the Tower of Babel and how it currently impacts us separately, completely separately at different
Yeah.
points in our own lives before we were in communication with each other. And this is not a common perception that you can just, read in any book. It feels like we're accessing legitimate memories of what really went down and how it continues to affect us and how we can use this understanding to reclaim that which was, sort of like that which we sort of temporarily lost, but so long ago.
Yeah, it is. It's so interesting. It's so I'll talk a little bit about what I saw. I know it mirrors what you also saw. So we're recording this in, I think is it the 4th or something? It's March 4th of 2026. So in 2001, which is crazy, that was so fucking long ago. I had this very clear vision about the Tower of Babel. And what I saw was that whatever the Tower of Babel was, like from a 3D literal perspective, that the energy behind it and what actually ended up happening was profoundly destructive. And it ended up creating like much more like it's still affecting all of us now in a way that is really deep. And it's really important for us to like reconnect to. You and I talk a lot about how important it is to reconnect to our hearts and that wisdom and that ability to be able to communicate metaphysically, like through telepathy and through all the clairs and through we'll call it like the psychic network, right? To be able to communicate with each other through heart-based coherence, through with the plants and the animals and the trees and with like our divine intelligence. Because what I saw happen with the Tower of Babel was that it was like this energy came sweeping in and it destroyed our ability to be able to engage in that heart-based divine intellectual way of using our psychic gifts and our supernatural capacity to communicate using energy, and which to me is our actual primary mode of communication. And I don't want to minimize the next part of what I'm about to say. I don't want to minimize the beauty of language, right? Like I was saying to you before we started, I love words, I love writing, I love reading books and poetry and like engaging in the written word. I think there can be a lot of really profound beauty to it. However, if there's anything that we need to do right now, it's to be able to hold multiple perspectives. And one thing that has happened as a result of the Tower of Babel is that when that energy swept in, whatever the actual like destructive force was that essentially ripped us from that heart-based communication and our divine intelligence, that it forced us to have to start to engage with each other using language. And language, as beautiful as it can be, is very limiting. It's very limiting. And when you think about the impact of, how many times you as a profoundly gifted oracle, me as a profoundly gifted oracle, how many times do I like hear people quote unquote like fighting with each other, having an argument about something? And I'm like, you're both essentially you're saying different words and you're engaged in like a level of like tension and combat with each other, but at the root you want the same thing. But you don't understand how to like engage with the energetics, how to engage with the heart. And language, however beautiful it can be, is also profoundly limiting, and it creates a lot of division and a lot of misunderstanding. And I think that's in a lot of ways the purpose of it, right? Like and again, like we need it to be able to like live our lives in a very tangible way right now. But one of the reasons why I think doing the spiritual work, reconnecting to these like deep, profound magical gifts that each of us possesses is so urgently needed right now is because there is an element of, we'll call it like bellicosity. Bellicose, for those of you who are not nerds and don't know what that means, that's cool. But bellicose means like a warlike energy. And there is, to me, a level of bellicosity woven into the written and the spoken word. Like, how many times have we all heard people be like, oh, someone said such and such a thing, and like, I don't resonate with that. And I'm like, but do you not resonate with the energetic truth behind what they said? Or do you not resonate with the actual words that they said? And this is funny because I'll pass the baton over to you in a minute, but I had a dear friend for a long time, and we were both like very nerdy, and we get into like big like philosophical debates with each other, and like we I feel like we would like, we had sort of a level of like passionate discourse and argument with each other. And our long running, like this went on for like 15 years, argument with each other, one of our prime arguments that we would get entangled in was whether the words that we said mattered or whether it was the intention behind them. Shocking no one, I was on team intention. And her point of view was that the words itself mattered. And I'm like, to me, that doesn't make sense because even when I think about like my own work, like there is a level of depth and metaphysical wonder that cannot be ever contained in words, no matter how good I ever got at explaining what it is that I'm doing for people through this process, of sharing future medicine, of sharing all of the ascension technologies that I've created that I share with people. At the end of the day, it's literally about the energy woven into it. I feel like I often miss the mark in terms of trying to like explain what I'm doing in a clear way. And the number of times people have been like, you don't make any sense. And I'm like, yeah, I fucking know that. How do you even explain the depth of creation using words? Like, get the fuck out of here, Bob. Like, I already know that. Thanks, though. Tell me something I don't know. Like, how can you articulate the music of the heart using something as simple as words? Like, it's very hard. And I think that's for a reason. And I think whatever the Tower of Babel was, came in, it fucked up our ability to be able to communicate using our magic, our divine intellect. And it is still affecting all of us today in ways that are deeper than any of us can even understand. And, just looking at what's happening right now on the world stage and the stuff that we're moving through. And it's so, of course, it's so curious because you also saw something very similar about the Tower of Babel too. And it just feels so, we've got it. We've got to find a way to reclaim and reconnect back to those divine energies and the deeper meaning behind the intention and like the actual energetic experience, and focus less on the optics, which to me are like the words that we share. Because the other part of it too is that anyone can say fucking anything. How many times are we all snookered over and over again? Look at literally any politician in the history of fucking forever. They sound so good, don't they? They're like, no, I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna do this thing and do, do, do. And then it's like, actually, you're gonna do fucking none of that. You're gonna do the same hinky bullshit, which is that you're all working for the same false matrix bullshit. You're not gonna do any of the things that you say you're gonna do. If anything, you're gonna be making things far worse behind the scenes, but like, okay, cool, like, great. You watch the news. In in when the events of 2000, it's interesting that I saw that in 2001, and there was that big cataclysmic global event that occurred in my country in September of 2001. And I remember watching that on TV, and I could literally see the energy that what they were telling us about what had happened wasn't true. I'm not saying that I know what actually happened, but I can tell you unequivocally that I could literally see a deceptive energy running through the narrative, and it was everywhere. I was also ironically working for the government doing AmeriCorps, which is national service, and I, like a big old rube, said in front of like a room of my coworkers, I was like, it seems really evident that like whatever they're telling us happened isn't like the actual thing that happened. And everyone looked at me like I was totally crazy. And I was like,
Oh,
okay, cool. Nope, I would like to just here I am with my tinfoil bow tie, just always here, just saying some stuff. And, then of course, we know like there were a lot of other people, mostly men at the time, wearing tinfoil hats who were saying, like, this is not the thing, did not happen. But in terms of what they were telling us, right, they were telling us about like how this thing had happened. And I could, because I've always been so connected to the language of my heart, to that level of like divine communication and intelligence, I could literally see with my human eyes and with my spidey sense, with all of the parts of my intellect, which are multitudinous, that what was being told to us was not true. And I think that's the other reason why getting a handle on this energy and why this conversation you and I are having about the Tower of Babel is so important, because people can say fucking anything. But what are they actually doing behind the scenes? What is their actual energetic intention? And are they walking the shit they're talking? Because if they're not, which is what so many people are doing at this point, then it's just noise and it's lies and it's manipulation and it's a misdirect.
totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And at like so what I saw with the Tower of Babel is that it was like a black magic technology that was sort of like you could understand it the way that, for example, like CERN operates or HARP operates. Like it's some kind of black magic technology that targeted our frequency and created an interruption in our telepathic connectedness. So prior to the Tower of Babel, and like I'll always say, I'm not a biblical scholar. I do not have passages from the Bible memorized verbatim. So, please just give me a little bit of grace as I share what I recall from this Tower of Babel story. Uh, or I don't even know, maybe it was from the Book of Enoch. Regardless, ancient texts. Um, just that, like, it was meant to like break apart the people and create multiple languages, essentially.
Mhm. Yeah.
From what I understand and what I was shown at the time, we were communicating primarily through like we have three levels of telepathy. We have sacral telepathy, which is like it's a very sensual relational like presence sort of telepathy. So it operates mostly on our physical presence, but we are all experiencing this one all the time. We're just unaware of it. But like if anybody has pets, babies, children, or if you're just sitting in proximity with somebody else that you love and there's like a certain degree of safety and intimacy, your sacral
Mhm.
chakra will be on and open and calibrating to their frequency. And that's a degree of communication that's like, on the dim setting, like it can be amplified and like very, very, very vivid. But we have sacral chakra telepathy, and then we have the type of telepathy that most people think of, which is like transmitting thoughts either through pictures or through it's not really through words because words are an artificial construct that followed the Tower of Babel incident. But so we tend to think of it as like being able to speak mind to mind, but it's really like you can project a mental, understanding to each other. And then the most important one, though, by far, is the heart telepathy, which is like you get so much information when you tune in to somebody's heart field, when you open your heart field and tune to their heart field. And the thing with telepathy is that it's really an expression of a unified consciousness. We can't deceive each other when we are telepathically connected. And that doesn't mean that everybody can read your like every thought at all times and you have no privacy. That's why the heart one is the predominant telepathy. Like we can turn mental telepathy on and off and use it, as we desire and as it seems appropriate. But the primary form of telepathy that we had, the primary form of communication was through the heart. And we would exist with each other on that heart plane of total connection. And it's like words are not required. You feel the other person, the other people
Mm.
around you, you feel them on a heart level, and you couldn't hurt somebody else because
Yeah.
you feel instantly the hurt that was created. Like we're one being on that level. As kumbaya as it sounds, like if you can listen to me and kind of imagine it, it's like you
Mm.
can't lie.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
why would you want to? You can't hurt somebody else, and why would you want to? You only
Yeah.
operate collaboratively and cooperatively in co-creation. You do not operate in competition because nobody
Yeah.
is a source of competition. We're all one organism. And when
Yeah.
we were connected at that level, it was very hard to manipulate and deceive us because like the heart is the barometer.
Mm.
It's your bullshit detector. It's your truth detector.
Yeah.
It's in the heart. So when we're operating from this like super amplified, collectively anchored heart field, and that's how we're all communicating with each other. It was very, very difficult to pit us against each other, very
Yeah.
difficult to conquer us, very
Yep.
difficult to subjugate. You
Yep.
can't deceive us, you can't manipulate us. So that had to be broken. And
Yep.
then we had to be separated into tribes or whatever. Like tribe
Hmm.
is the word that we
Yeah.
have that I can use right now, but it's to say we had to be separated into groups
Yep.
and then given an identity as a group that is different from the identity of another group, and then encouraged to
Yeah.
develop language and to band together and to see the other
Yep.
groups as a threat and to be
Yep.
convinced that resources are limited and that we have to fight with each other for our survival. It's all a fucking psyop at the deepest levels. Like it goes so far
So deep.
beyond like the political level of psyops, like for example 9/11, and those count, those matter so
Yeah. Yeah.
much. But it's
Yeah.
like
It's so deep.
it goes so
It's
deep. The psyop is the perception that there are finite resources and that we are in competition with each other and we need to fight with each
yeah.
other. And
Yeah.
obviously you can see that they continue to employ this divide and conquer
Oh
like
my God.
game plan
Oh
continuously,
my
and we
God.
keep taking the bait.
Oh.
That's the most frustrating part is like,
Yeah. Agreed.
and kind of coming back to what you were saying about being misunderstood and not being able like I don't agree with what you said. And it's like, but can you feel the resonance? And actually we're
Yeah.
both in agreement. A little while ago when I went on Tinfoil Hat, there was somebody who commented and gave me some shit about the way I was talking about gay people. And I was like,
Mhm.
what do you mean? Like the whole entire episode was about love and heart connection and remembering that we're all on the same team.
Yeah.
And but that
Yeah.
person like got really hung up on the words and couldn't
Hmm.
feel the resonance
Yeah.
behind the words. And that's what the false matrix uses to create separation, to create and amplify
Mhm.
the sense of separation through misunderstanding. And words
Yeah.
are, I also have love, I don't hate words. I have a love begrudge relationship with words because they are so limited, but they are so beautiful. And one of my favorite
Yeah.
things is to feel
Mhm.
the feel the energy of what I'm trying to communicate and feel for the correct word that's the closest match to be able to convey it with the maximum
Mhm.
clarity. Like there's a
Yeah.
beauty in that and there's a fun in
Yeah.
that. But it's also like there are,
Mhm.
like our psychic abilities, for example, we don't have a vocabulary for them. They've
Yeah.
been completely, it's almost like a lobotomy, like the right brain and all of that
Hmm.
was just like blocked off,
Yeah.
and we shall not speak of it, and therefore it shall not exist. And so now,
Yeah.
as we're trying to talk about these things that are of a more spiritual or vibrational, non-physical nature, we're all having to stumble through these imperfect and fairly new terms. Like, we were talking before we hit record about the 5D and what how some people, when they refer to the 5D, they're referring to one thing, and other people are referring to another thing. And it's because language was created to omit all of that, to omit
Yeah.
an acknowledgement of like a frequency. I refer to it as a timeline that
Mm.
is the restoration of that heart field, and what we co-create together from the full like expression of our gifts, the like
Yeah.
our complete individual self-actualization, and therefore like actualization as a collective. What we co-create at
Mhm.
that heart level is it's so hard to even imagine
Mm.
it.
Yeah. 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 It really is. And of course, um, for those of you who know what I'm about, I love show and tell in an object, and I have I have a type of session that I do, which is all of the work that I do is to help facilitate um, a reconnection to your divine gifts and intelligence, but I have a specific kind of session called Scheller's technology, which is psychic gifts activation. And I am, of course, as we're talking, holding this tiny little absolutely fucking perfect shell in my hands. And I'm just twirling it around while we're talking because I mean, that's like the power move, right? Like the way you described it was so beautiful. Like as you were talking, I like closed my eyes and just like leaned into it because it was so beautiful. And I love the way that you expressed that. And I think that is when I think about what's possible, right? Like when I was talking at the beginning about how like what is possible is so beyond what we're told. And like when you think about every system that exists is essentially part of like the bigger psyop, right? Is this disconnect between each other and between our actual power, which is inexplicable and beyond anything that any of us could ever explain using words. And how quickly everything is just going, it's already happening. But when you think about, like, to me, someone like you, someone like me who is so deeply connected to these gifts and this level of connectivity and these intelligences that are so urgently needed to be rekindled and cultivated by every person on this in this realm, and just how it can like literally change in an instant because it doesn't need to be this way. All of this division, all of this noise. And it's interesting you brought up like the identity politics part of it because to me, like, it's like, again, it's just a way, it's like literally a way of creating war amongst us. Like,
Yeah.
of course, I want everyone to literally do whatever they want, like as a consenting grown person to just like let your fucking freak flag fly, be the weirdest version of you that you possibly can, dress and be and speak and say and do like anything that you want that brings you pleasure and joy. And also, that should never create division between you and anybody else. Because for starters, when you're out of that zone of like judgment and you're not feeding into the narrative of like judging other people and creating friction and feeling like what you're doing, that like God or politics or someone is like, familial energies, ancestral things are like telling you to like judge other people and create all of this noise and hoard resources and create all of this disconnect. It's like none of that stuff really matters. You just get to be in a realm where we have fully reclaimed our wisdom and shifted out of this fucking false matrix of bullshit and noise and really transmuted and dissolved these energies. I love how you described it as like a dark technology because that's exactly how I saw it too, even though I used again different words. And I feel like that's the other thing that's so beautiful about you and I sharing the way that we perceived it, because it's a real-time example of two people understanding something very profound in terms of like divine depth And then, you know, sharing the perception of the intention using our own unique lens. Because that's the other thing is like we all have our own way of communicating. Like a couple of years ago, I did a reading for someone who had just experienced really serious grief. And and I did a reading for her and I told her a bunch of things that I saw as being the truth. And a couple days later, she sent me a text and like I checked in with her. It was like a friend of a friend, like they had reached out. This is not someone who I normally would have like had land in my world, but a friend of theirs had referred her and said, can you like do this emergency session for her to help her navigate this thing that's going on? And so I checked back in a few days later and I was like, how are you doing? What's going on? And she said, well, I did a session with somebody else and they told me this thing and it's completely different than what you told me. And I was like, that thing they said to you is literally the same thing I said to you. That's literally the same thing. They used a bunch of different words because the words are imperfect. And I tried to explain this to her. I was like, that's literally the same thing. Like dollars for donuts, identical energetic articulation, exact. Like there was no, I was like, I know that's the same thing. And she didn't, she was very like you know, she was experiencing a very, bless her, a very deep grief anyway, but also was very like in that, sort of 3D narrative about language and about, to go back to the argument that I used to have with my friend about whether it was the words or the intention behind them. And I don't think she could see that it was the same thing at all. And I was like, well, just like sit with it. Cause to me, it's, you know, energetically, it's the same thing. And like, I'm sure I will never hear from you again because you think one of us is a fraud, even though we're both telling you the same thing. But like, okay, blessings.
Yeah, and that's just one of the layers of damage that was created by the Tower of Babel. So not only did it like fragment us as like one organism. By the way, and when I say like we're one organism, the beauty of the fifth dimension, and this realm was designed to exist across the third, fourth, and fifth dimension. We've been artificially capped at the fourth dimension. The fourth dimension is where all the stories exist. It is the story, and the story is important. It's the arc through which we evolve, our consciousness evolves. But when we are artificially held here, looping around in like continuous fragmentation of trauma loops and disempowerment stories and perceptions of scarcity and threat to our survival and perceiving each other as threats to our own survival, then we can't, like, we're limited. We don't get to experience the full magnitude of the beauty that this realm was always designed to be. So, as a collective, like, unified organism, the, the reason this realm is so special is because we still get to be individuals. It's just that we feel each other and relate to each other on a level of unity where there's no deception, as I said, and no competition and no hurting each other. But like we would always have a unique lens of perception. Even pre-language, we would have a unique lens of perception, and that is what makes the like that's what makes us as a collective greater, stronger, more beautiful, is all the variation that comes with a subjective personal lens of perception. But the insertion of the reliance on language, again, because I also like when I hear indigenous languages, a lot of the time they sound to me like light language, like heart language, earth
Yeah.
language. Um,
Yeah.
so like I'm also not trying to demonize language or throw all language away, but when we were
Yeah.
disconnected from each other
Mhm.
and we became like artificially, different language groups were created and different sort of like tribal identities were created and separation was amplified, the long-term sort of like effect of that is that we get so flat in our perception of communication and each other and reality. So like expecting two readers who don't know each other and are completely different people to use the exact same words verbatim, and that's the only way you know that the message is actually true, and the inability to feel the shift internally that's created by truths that are greater than the words that were used to convey those truths. That is, it's almost like they've found a way to not make us dumber, because I would never call humans dumb. And I
No,
mean, like,
no,
I
no.
include everybody, even the people that you encounter at Walmart, for example, where you're like, you've been so fragmented. There's very little
Yeah.
of your creative consciousness in this particular avatar right now. But I don't think humans are dumb at all.
Yeah.
But we have been artificially, I guess the
Mhm.
best way I could put it without using that word is like our consciousness has been flattened and narrowed
Mhm.
substantially. And so then we also relate
Mhm.
to each other in these really flat ways. And that's like, it allows
Yeah.
for us to argue
Yeah.
pointlessly on the internet.
Yes.
And like, God forbid somebody say something that you misunderstand. Now,
Oh my
the
God.
entire complexity of their, the fullness of their being is now like a thing for you to label and dismiss. It's just, it's so wild, because it's all like, who does it serve? That's the ultimate question we always have to ask ourselves, is like, who is being served by this? Is it us? No. Is it the
No.
false matrix? 100%. They're getting
Yep.
energetically charged up, and we're being
Yeah.
depleted, and we're being very easily
Mhm.
manipulated because
Yeah.
we're so over reliant on language. And I really feel like this is, I mean, I think the telepathy tapes have been such a boon in the sense that it kind of offered some, I guess, proof for minds that are require some proof, um,
Mhm.
that this is a real thing. But like
Yeah.
we have to choose it. Do you know what I mean? Like we can't just wait for it to be like fully activated. And I've had experiences of having things activated, but there's still a process of now having to like put it into action and anchor it in and get really good at it
Yeah.
and bring it into mastery.
Yeah.
And that's what we have to
Yeah.
do, to in order to
Mhm.
shift out of this super compartmentalized, super like separation
Mhm.
engineered way of existing with each other, back into, yeah, the fullness of the consciousness that we're able to
Mhm.
occupy in this realm, which is free and liberated and unified once more, and no longer vulnerable to being manipulated and subjugated.
Yes. Here, here. I have nothing to add. That is pitch perfect. Exactly all the things. Yeah. So, and this feeds perfectly also, I think, into our next episode where we're going to be talking about like why connecting to this, cultivating your sense of discernment, working with these gifts, engaging in to me, there's literally nothing more important than engaging in that level of self-mastery right now. Um, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, totally.
yeah.
Yeah, and
So
to not, to learn how to not abdicate our power to
yeah,
other people, like to how to hold our own power and recognize the power in another, and like our organic, God given power, you could say.
yeah,
Um, Andrea, do you want to tell, do we have a minute? Let's tell everybody how they can, go deeper with us if their interest is piqued. What do you have available right
yeah.
now?
Oh my God, I have so many cool things going on right now. I have a program that's starting in a couple of weeks called Cosmic Alchemy Academy. It's 11 months. It runs through the end of this year. It is so fucking fun. I haven't run it in like a couple of years, but like in previous rounds of it, I revisioned it, I extended it. It's just been so cool because it's all about this. It's all about this process of self mastery, extricating from the false matrix and finding out, making sense of how you uniquely, your unique lens of perception, connecting to your psychic gifts, connecting to this heart coherence, really finding a way to be able to like bravely stand in your own authority. It's so much fun. It's so much fun. It's so much fun. I have my modality, future medicine. I have a certification program which starts in April. Cosmic Alchemy Academy is included in that. If that's your vibe, if you want to go like a really ultra deep, learn how to like do your version of what I do. I call that program like getting a PhD in you. You learn a set of skills, absolutely, like a clear energetic healing modality. But it's also about like you remembering who the fuck you are. And then I have a bunch of like different like one-off sessions and things that people can do. I've been really hot for I love all the sessions I do. I talked about the Schiller's technology activations, but I have sessions called Celestial Soul Retrievals that are really cool. And then I have like my OG Future Medicine sessions. And if you sign up for my newsletter, which the links for this will be in there, you can get $100 off your first session. And, if you let me know that you found me through Oracle's Gone Wild, um, then I will also give you credit for whatever you spend on your session that you can use towards any of my longer term programs. So find me in all the places. I love you guys so much. Doing this work is such a fucking gift, which you and I talk about all the time. I feel like like in the hour that we were leading into this, a lot of it was just reflecting about how lucky it feels to be able to like hold this space for you guys and help you reconnect to this because it is time. Um, and there's literally nothing I would want to do, and there's never been anything that I wanted to do beyond this. This is my dream, and I'm getting to live my dream in real time, which is to help you guys connect back to your beautiful fucking truth.
And your magic. Totally. Yeah, and I have on March 13th I have a live workshop going on. It's only $47. It's called Anchor in Your Highest Timeline. And in that workshop, I'm going to teach you like what is the timeline? Like what do I mean actually when I'm talking about timelines and teach you how to scan the field for your different timelines and to find your highest one. And then the process of anchoring it in, we're going to do it as a group, but also I'm going to teach you the method to anchor into your highest timeline so that you can navigate this shift that we're going through in a way that basically sets you free. Like the way I perceive it right now is that we are, the old timelines are no longer available. They're just not available. Like there's no energy left in them. They are crumbling and falling away. And we're all sort of being like herded, or we're being, I don't know, herded isn't the right word. It's like it's a forced migration into a different timeline. But if you're not really aware of how to optimize this beautiful moment that we're in as human beings, you can just end up replicating a version of the familiar timeline, which I think is what people pretty much always do. So come check that out. I would love to have you there. And yeah, that's what I got.
So
Mwah!
fun. I love it. We love you. Goodbye.